What's up, everyone? You know who I am. I'm Jack Slater, aka the Comic Outlaw. Yeah. And are you ready for an age? An age of apocalypse. Yes, we're going to be covering the Age of Apocalypse, the Outlaw Cut. And we're starting off with Chronicles of X-Men, the Dawn of Apocalypse. And yes, there stands a man, Magneto, seeing the changes that are coming between mutant and humankind, and the death of a man who he held in high regard, carrying on his dream, for Charles Xavier died as a young man in his arms. He forms a fortress in Eastern Europe, in the haunted mountains where he trains his X-Men for the battle to come between human and mutant, trying to achieve Xavier's dream of peace. His son Quicksilver tells him that there's a class has started, and his group of mutants are training, learning to fight for the dream of a dead man who has passed long ago. These students include Iceman, Storm, Colossus, Jean Grey, Wanda Maximoff, as well as her brother Pietro. They are the X-Men, and Magneto's pushing them harder, training, and he realizes that he must be down there, for he cannot lead on the sidelines. He must be there with his students, teaching them, molding them, as he shows them new abilities, new powers, and how to work together to be prepared for anything that may happen. But yet these students have been sheltered for a very long time. True, they learned how to fight, but they may have forgotten what the outside world has to offer. The savagery of it, the raw emotion, as he molds his students, training them, giving them tips, but then he introduces something different, something savage, a new member, Weapon X. Yes, this mutant tears through all the robots, smashing, destroying at will. A beast in a man's body, as he begins to fly into a rage, almost slicing Iceman apart. Pietro moves him at the last second. Magneto restrains Logan, and Jean Grey tries her hand to soothe the mind of the savage beast, and it brings him out of it, for he is the new member of X-Men, and he asks if any of them has a cigar, as they stare at him blankly, not knowing what to make of this new member. Meanwhile, Apocalypse's heralds appear, warning that there's a new day coming, and that Apocalypse is here, and he will be changing the face of the world, for only the strong survive. As Magneto has a moment of reflection, looking at a picture of him and Charles when he was younger, and the mysterious mutant that murdered him all those years ago. But Magneto has a visitor from a woman named Mesquite, who's dropping off her daughter, her adopted daughter, which she loves like her own, here to be protected. For Apocalypse has already tried coming for her, and Mesquite has used every resource possible to keep her safe, and now she has no choice but to leave her with Magneto. And she goes away crying. Iceman shows up, tries to reach out to Rogue. She pushes him away. She cannot be touched, she'll absorb their power. But Magneto welcomes her to the fold, the family. For in this reality, Rogue has absorbed the powers of Polaris, giving her magnetic powers herself. Meanwhile, Apocalypse's troops appear, his horsemen, ready to do his bidding, ready to bring this war to a sizzle and light the fires of death and destruction. While Wanda is taking Rogue on a tour, showing her everything the school has to offer, and the man who was the inspiration for it, Charles Xavier, Magneto's friend who was killed long ago. But Pietro runs up to Magneto, warning him that there's a problem brewing. A big problem. Magneto is ready. He gathers his students as the horsemen rain down death and destruction upon the soldiers, for they are after the missile launch codes so they can kick off World War III, kick off the game of survival, as the horsemen have no problem weeding their way through the troops, killing them off and enjoying every moment of it. For it's their job to spread death and destruction. If only out of chaos, Apocalypse believes change can come, and the fittest shall arise. As Sabretooth, one of the most experienced members of this group, guides them in, Magneto knows what time it is. He knows that some of his people may or may not come back. It is the price of being a soldier in this new war, as he gathers his X-Men into the Blackbird. Some nervous, never having to have a real fight before in their lives. Others ready for battles such as Weapon X. Magneto tells Wanda to stay behind with Rogue and his other students as someone watches as the plane takes off. His name is Nemesis, and he is a destroyer. As the horsemen finally reach their goal, the X-Men take off, each one wondering, preparing themselves for what's going to happen, preparing themselves for the battle that lies ahead. And Magneto himself is ready. But they are suddenly brought down by one of the horsemen, and the X-Men spring into action, helping those that can't fly land, and the battle has just begun. Meanwhile, Nemesis is destroying the complex, attacking, murdering. As they try to get the other students to shelter, Wanda realizes something. Where's Rogue? As she appears out of nowhere, using her magnetic powers to knock Nemesis back. Nemesis will not tolerate such a humiliation. He begins using his powers to burn her, but Wanda stops him. Using her probability field, she actually hurts him, scars his face. But now, the horsemen are in the building, and they plan to use the missiles to destroy, to burn, to conquer. And this, nobody told Sabretooth. He thought it was going to be a simple ransom job. But Apocalypse has decreed him weak, that he doesn't have the stomach for what happens next, and that he must be put to death. But the X-Men show up, and this is an any port in the storm situation, and they let Sabretooth go so he may attack them, so he may die on his feet, then living on his knees before Apocalypse destroys him. And him and Weapon X have a meeting, a talk, and it's bloodshed time between the two. It's time to find out who really is the top dog in this situation. As they begin to go back and forth, cutting, slicing, dicing. But Weapon X has an adamantium skeleton. He's been trained for this, and he does have the stomach for death and destruction. As Magneto and Jean Grey try to make their way to the main computer, Jean is stopped by one of the horsemen, and she squares off against her. As Magneto walks in, he meets Gideon, a computer expert, and he says they could have been on the same side if, and only if, Magneto had recruited him. Magneto blasts him with a pulse, but Gideon's power is to absorb and rechannel, holding Magneto hostage. As Storm begins to use her powers in savage ways she never thought she would, as does all the X-Men, they realize that this isn't a game anymore. This is war. This is a battle. As Wolverine and Sabretooth square off, Wolverine severs his spine, seeing if his healing factor can heal that. Because Wolverine, aka Weapon X in this reality, is the best at what he does. As Gideon holds Magneto hostage, he uses the power from the Earth's core, sends a blast out, a pulse, and it ends up shorting out the computer, the missile systems. They're safe for now. As Apocalypse stands congratulating them on their victory, making them an offer, and inviting his horsemen back, save for Sabretooth, who was defeated at the hands of Weapon X, aka Wolverine. Logan, whatever you want to call him, as Magneto emerges from the building, destroying the weaponry on Apocalypse's ship, and Apocalypse had underestimated Magneto. A mistake he will not make twice. As the X-Men ready to go home, but they find their home is going to be in ruins. And Wanda is dying in Rogue's arms. She asks her to take care of her father, for he is so wrapped up in the mission he forgets to live a normal life. As the X-Men return, they had won, and yet they had lost at the same time. But the war goes on, and so must Magneto, and so must the X-Men. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Yeah.